Hello, guten Tag, hello, and welcome to Studio 8.1. This is a quick 25-minute run through of some of the most interesting stories that have come across our desks with me, Jarvis Todd, the publisher, and Paul Skeldon, the wordsmith,
Hey,
and frankly, the brains behind the operation. Now, this particular episode, we are going off-piste because Mobile World Congress and more importantly, 8.1 Live is going to be happening in Barcelona in a few days' time. And we are going to be looking at the top 10 things to see at Mobile World Congress in 2025. So if you are heading to Barcelona, this is an episode you shouldn't miss. Paul, hi. Thank you for joining
hello.
me. Obviously, number one is don't miss 8.1 Live, but we'll talk about that a little bit
Yeah.
later on. But in general, Mobile World Congress throws up a number of themes which are relevant for the telemedia industry, and we are going to kick off initially by talking about payments. So tell me what you picked up with regards to this exciting part of the industry, and specifically with regards to Barcelona.
Well, what I thought we could talk about today really is how, with Mobile World Congress happening next week and 8.1 Live starting on Sunday as well, also in Barcelona, was how sort of what some of the key things that I think are going to be interesting at both shows, because there is some crossover, because even though 8.1 has sort of taken a lot of the 8.1 VAS stuff that used to be at Mobile World Congress and put it in it's in our venue. There are other things going on at the main sort of Mobile World Congress show as well. That's also sort of feeds through to this. I think the first sort of thing that I think we're going to see a lot of at Telemedia 8.1 Live, though we will find bits and pieces of it, I think, within the Mobile World Congress show is carrier billing, because as we discussed in previous podcasts, 1 in 5 mobile users are expected to be using carrier billing by the end of the year worldwide. It's very much now mainstream. We talked about, I think, last episode we did about how mobile network operators really need to sort of push it and embrace it, because it's a much needed revenue stream for them. I think we're going to see and hear a lot more about that at the show, or at both shows. Obviously at 8.1 Live, we're going to hear from many of the sort of key companies providing it. People like Dynamic Mobile Billing will be there talking about it. We'll also be looking at the how to make it sort of secure and fraud proof and all that sort of thing, with people like MCP Insight, Avina, Impello, all those key players who are all at 8.1 Live. I think it'll be also interesting to see how we'll probably see more of carrier billing mentioned, albeit in passing, but as a sort of key service from network operators in the Mobile World Congress itself, over at the FIRA across the 5 or 6 days that it's on for.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think in general, when it comes to a sort of the GSMA's view of commerce and payments within commerce, it comes under a very big umbrella of, let's say, alternative payments. But I think that whilst the telemedia industry has its roots firmly set in sort of DCB premium rate history, it seems very clear that most of the payment aggregators within the telemedia industry, probably for the last 3, 4, 5 years even, have been coining the phrase alternative payments and have been
Mm.
bringing on board things like open banking, credit card solutions to offer merchants a dashboard whereby they can offer the fullest range of payment mechanisms in order to minimize a basket abandonment and in order to maximize conversion. So I
Mm.
think in that respect, the telemedia industry has probably been way ahead of Mobile World Congress in many ways. And I think in some ways, that's probably one of the reasons why 8.1 Live was allowed to spring
Mm.
up from nowhere, because perhaps the practicalities of what a mobile user is actually buying and how they're paying for it and how it's being presented to them has perhaps been sidelined a little bit, or was sidelined a little bit by Mobile World Congress, which, and we'll talk about this later, does tend to have, I feel, more of a kind of, that they're sort of not so interested in what going on right now. They're so interested in 6G and
Mm.
satellite and all that, and I feel like and we're going to talk about that later, but certainly for anyone that's actually running a business in 2025 that wants to make money, the telemedia industry is really where that's at, and that's one of the main reasons why I think a lot of people will be coming from Mobile World Congress to hang out at
Mm,
8.1 on the Monday, because effectively you've got 500, 600 people, probably, 150, 200 companies, all within a meter of each other. And of
mm.
course, that means that in one 24-hour spell, or if you've got that kind of energy, if you're on amphetamines or something, but within a very short space of time, you can probably nail
Yeah.
30 or 40 really key meetings, whereas the MWC model is pretty tricky. It's
Mm.
like looking for a needle in a haystack. But I shouldn't dwell on this too much longer. Okay, so payments, billing, obviously that's crucial. That's definitely going to be a thing. Let's talk about content. I know
Yeah, cool.
we've
Go
been
on.
dwelling on, well, we've highlighted numerous content innovations over the last couple of years. Again, we're going to see a huge amount of very exciting areas of content um, being showcased at Telemedia 8.1. But from a kind of more general industry point of view, looking at both events, what do you think the main sort of takeaways, or what are the main things to look out for next week with regards to content?
Well, yes, well, there's a lot of things I think, and we will see quite a lot of them at 8.1. I think some of the more sort of far-fetched and future-looking ones, are going to be the things that grab the headlines at Mobile World Congress itself. But I think sort of generally what we're seeing, certainly from the sort of telemedia mobile VAS sector perspective, is that content's getting much richer, much more interactive, much more sort of encompassing and engaging. That's the sort of key thing. So it still works to put out the kind of content that people like, but really you have to be much more adaptable, I think, in terms of the kind of content you're selling. So it's short form video, it's long form video, it's how to do things. There's a lot of education stuff, which telemedia used to be very much focused on things that were entertainment. Increasingly that's becoming much more educational and how tos and cookery and health and wellness and all those sorts of things. I think we're going to see a lot of that. But the interesting thing is how that's sort of delivered and how that content's sort of made. So I think to sort of lump together some of the predictions that are in the story that we've published on our website yesterday, that's gained quite a lot of traction actually since I put it up yesterday evening. We're going to see a lot of things around sort of immersive voice and audio. So bringing sort of voice calls into a much richer, much more sort of audioly pleasing sort of way. I know it sounds simple, but like making the audio better is something that really can create sort of some interesting new services, particularly when sort of fired up by AI and AI chatbots that are responsive, that are agentic, and can sort of adapt to what you're saying. You can create some quite interesting voice chat services that are rich and sound good. I think we're also going to see a lot of immersive things around mixed reality. So augmented reality, virtual reality, mixtures of the two, mixtures of that in with real reality. We've already seen it over the past few years with Sam Media with their Holozonia metaverse offering, and then I think it's 2 years ago they launched Sing Space, which is a sort of interactive karaoke product. I think we're going to see a lot more, certainly, of people talking about how to make the content much richer and much deeper. And of course, a lot of that's going to be fired by AI. And it's that rich content that will get the eyeballs that people will pay. And that's where the billing obviously comes in and the traffic comes from.
It's interesting you should say talk about audio. I mean, one of the it's, I mean, I imagine that most of the audio services would either be would either be on downloads, or I mean,
Mm,
we're going to talk later on about the all typical GSMA Mobile World Congress view 6G's where it's at now,
mm,
which would obviously help. But I mean, mobile users are still struggling to actually get a decent mobile.
yeah.
So streaming audio is still going to be a real challenge. And
Mm,
I guess, as I say, those audio services are going to be on download only. But we can talk about that in the coming year. I mean, I certainly hear what you're saying about mixed reality. I mean, as we talked about probably, I guess, 2 years ago when Holozonia from Sound Media was launched, that was, I think, a revelation. And now these kinds of technologies are sort of hardwired into the kind of content creation community,
mm,
and consumers are expecting and able to enjoy those kind of technologies. Not for you and me, mate, but you know, on a daily basis, high tech, high spending consumers are coming online, and they do expect to use those
mm,
services, and they will want to see that technology incorporated into those content services, and of course, therefore, they will pay a premium for it. And I think that from the point of talking about content in general, our industry, the telemedia industry, has really put a kind of capital P in front of premium now. And the days of, just kind of trying to sort of engage a customer, get their billing details, and really not worry too much about the services
mm.
being created, those days are long gone. And and I think we've got a richer industry for it. Um, Obviously, you talked about AI. That's been a constant over the last couple of years for us. It's going to be, I agree with you. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, um, how AI is affecting absolutely every
Mm.
aspect of the telemedia industry, right the way from billing to marketing to the content
Well,
creation.
I think it's about the whole telecoms industry. I think AI is going to be mentioned in every single conversation that people have across not just 8.1, but the entirety of Mobile World Congress. It's just underpins everything, or it has an application in everything, and it really is sort of the buzzword du jour. So yeah, absolutely, I think that's
Yeah.
key. Look at me being all
Surely
international.
you should have found a Spanish alternative for de
I
jure.
should
But
have done.
anyway, don't worry about that. But obviously, the fact of the matter is, and I think again, it's fair to say that this is where MWC really does win the day over, the telemedia industry, is that from a big network, global network point of view, of course, that's where, the world's networks are going to be. And we've talked about the fact that none of these things are going to be, any good whatsoever without a really super fast network. And of course,
Mm,
5G continues to be, I don't know, there's still some big question marks over it, but we'll talk about some other alternatives later. And as I say, typical of the industry to already be talking about six before fives really become ubiquitous. But you've also mentioned the kind of relationship between 5G and IoT, which of course is very important because
mm.
that has serious implications for what MNOs are going to do in the future. So, how do you see, what should people be looking out for in Barcelona with regards to those delivery networks? Those.
I think sort of the 5G side of it, obviously, like you say, they're already sort of getting excited about the sort of migration to 6G, but that's yeah, we'll talk about that at the end because that's something to look forward to in like 2030. 5G
2035.
or yeah, 2035. I mean, like right now, 5G doesn't sort of certainly here in the UK it isn't everywhere, and even where it is, it's not that great. Um, but I think it is important, and it is being rolled out in more places as the years go by, and it does offer the ability to put these richer services out there. I mean, interesting. There's another story on the Telemedia news website last night. I think it might be published later today. Can't remember about how Vodafone in the UK have done an experiment with this network slicing. See, 5G was always sold this thing that you could slice up the bandwidth so you could run lots of high bandwidth things over basically the same capacity. So you'd have remote surgery happening and all sorts of stuff like that. It was going to be so good, but it's taken sort of 5 years to get to the point where they've done an experiment with it on a sort of private network at a rugby match. Um, but still it's progress. So I think that sort of 5G slicing is starting to happen, which means that the networks will be able to run these much more rich and immersive content services, which obviously is then the value added service providers can start to roll them out because they'll be sort of good and usable. Where IoT falls into it, I mean, IoT is sort of still a sort of grey area for telemedia, perhaps, as to sort of how to leverage connecting sort of devices, I guess, that aren't telephones and computers to the network. But there must be an opportunity in there because our guys always find an opportunity in anything that's connected to a 5G or mobile network. So I think we're going to see a lot of talk about IoT at Mobile World Congress. We're going to see, I think, a lot of talk about 5G and its application in sort of rich services at 8.1, particularly I think in what were always considered as emerging markets, such as MENA, uh, which aren't really emerging. They've evolved and they're here. And a lot of these ones have leapfrogged in terms of the network technology, sort of developed Western countries. So I think a lot of this is going to be about what looking at what is happening in MENA and to some degree sort of South Asia, India, that kind of part of the world, as maybe for telemedia, where we're going to see the development, what sort of things they're doing is going to be what we get everywhere else. And it'd be interesting to see what the sort of money making models with that are. And 5G plays a key role in underpinning that.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because one of the other top 10 things that you've pointed out for us to be looking at MWC, and I don't think, again, I mean, I don't think it's any secret I'm no great fan of Mobile World Congress.
No, me neither.
Probably you may have picked that up. But there will be lots of, I mean, we've run a couple of stories about satellite, the role of satellite in
Mm,
connectivity. And of course, connectivity with regards to the telemedia industry is essential. It unlocks, huge numbers of potential customers in, as you say, undeveloped or developing markets, or markets where connectivity is an issue, and that obviously is the first port of call for a telemedia company, because you obviously have to be able to interact and connect with your customer. But we've started talking a little bit over the last couple of months or so about some of the
mm,
developments in the with satellite and with Vodafone and AST, Elon Musk, Starlink, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's definitely going to be high profile in Barcelona next week. And I'm almost wondering whether or not it could be one of those great sort of, I don't know, telemedia or telecoms graveyards where billions and billions have been spent on 5G, and then all of a sudden satellite comes along and just
mm,
wipes it all away before it's even had a chance to pay for itself. So tell me a
mm.
little bit about that side.
Yeah, well, I think so. I don't know. I mean, I've been going to, well, as of you, Mobile World Congress since I don't know 1990 something,
Since it
and it's
started.
all yeah, pretty much yeah, down in Cannes. I think the first one was actually in London, but anyway, um, the show was, or the Mobile World Congress show was always, there was always at least a hall or everywhere dotted about satellite comms. It was all about satellite. You could make a mobile phone call on this thing with an enormous aerial from anywhere in the world, as long as you had a huge amount of money to do it. And it's a pivotal thing in sort of shipping and that kind of thing, and always has been massive market. And it's never really been commoditized enough to become something that is useful for the kind of services and consumer services that we talk about at Telemedia. However, that's all changing, and it's all changing really rapidly. Elon Musk's Starlink, which is basically a commoditized satellite network of, like, eventually it'll be thousands of satellites covering everywhere, uh, sort of really opened the door, I think, to the fact that satellite communication could well be, as you say, something that possibly gives ground-based mobile networks a run for their money, possibly even replaces them. Because the only uh, stumbling block to satellite communications is the cost, because it would just be very expensive to get a satellite up there, and you have to recoup those costs through charging for phone calls very highly. If that cost is sort of negligible or much, much lower, satellites suddenly become really useful. And so Starlink have done it. T-Mobile in the US is working with Starlink to roll out messaging services over satellite. It's going to be in parts of the world, like you say, where telecoms networks are sporadic or non-existent, but eventually it could be anywhere. And they are talking about this could be something that connects rural parts of the US. Here in the UK, rural parts have bad connectivity. Eventually, it might be here. In Europe, Vodafone has teamed up with AST Space Mobile, which best company name I think we've ever put on our website. Who do you work for? I work for Space Mobile. Um, they're working together along with the University of Malaga to create a sort of satellite comms testing facility, I think with a view to, again, making a much cheaper satellite comms thing. We ran an article a couple of weeks ago from Horizon about the use of satellite comms for
Yes.
messaging, particularly rich messaging. You think suddenly this is gaining a bit of momentum. Satellites are a bit of a player potentially. So I think at Mobile World Congress, we're going to see a lot of the usual stuff about satellites, but we might actually, I think, are going to see a surprising amount that's focused on actual sort of potential consumer services and connecting the unconnected. But also, this could spill over into sort of mainstream markets. And as you say, give network operators a run for their money. So I think satellite might be quite an interesting one to catch up on at the shows this year. But it's something we're going to see will becoming bigger and bigger business in the next sort of 2 to 5 years.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Before we go, Paul, I
Mm.
think we've probably covered pretty much all the 10 in a sort of
Yeah,
random way.
there's all sorts of other bits and
Yeah,
pieces around the edge.
there's a couple of things that are going back to. So we've talked about the kind of boring telecoms bit. All we really care about is have I got a connection with the consumer, and therefore, how can I then service that consumer with all sorts of wonderful premium services and that are obviously billable as well. But let's talk a little bit about the future of that side of things. And you've talked about extended reality, which I guess has a
Mm.
major implication for content creators, and something called quantum computing. So I
Yeah,
don't want you, this is just a little vision of the future, but just tell me
absolutely.
a little bit about that side of things.
Well, well, let's do extended reality first because I think that's more likely to be something we actually see. But extended reality is obviously using technology to extend reality. So that's already sort of underway in a way with this kind of mixed reality stuff, augmented and virtual reality. The sort of Apple's Vision Pro sort of headset and Oculus Rift and all the other ones that are out there, and um, Facebook's glasses and all that sort of stuff. You're already starting to see kind of niche use of overlaying things and onto reality. And I think by dint of that, you start to extend reality. I think if you start to move people into a metaverse environment like Holozonia and sort of Facebook's sort of Decentraland and all those sorts of places, you started to extend what reality actually is into this sort of virtual world and, blah, blah, blah. Been talked about it for a number of years. It's still not become mainstream, but I think it will. And sitting behind that will be better network. So 6G is clearly going to be something that really plays a key role in that because it'll be super fast and sort of super agile to handle all this sort of stuff. But I think the sort of really looking further into the future is quantum computing. Now, I don't really pretend to know and understand how that works, but it's to do with using quantum states to store data. So rather than just ones and zeros, you have like a particle can be in many different sort of states all at once, so it can store a vast amount of data, something like that.
I'm making
Microsoft,
notes.
yeah, I vaguely understand it, but probably don't really. So anyone listening, and I've got that wrong, do please write into Jarvis. But quantum computing does have the potential to sort of make computing super fast. It'll be able to handle so many calculations all at once, which will make AI in particular, faster than the human brain. And I think that it's that sort of leap in computing is going to generate all sorts of weird and wonderful things. It's going to make the metaverse realistic and lifelike. It will be like the real world. It just won't be there. How that's then sort of brought together with the real world, who knows? But I think sort of down the line, in 10 years' time, there could be some really weird and wonderful and interesting services out there based on extended reality, quantum computing, AI, and 6G. And we may well never meet in the real world. It'll all just
Well,
be digital. But who knows?
well, I tell you who knows, but I mean, thank you for that sort of rather, I don't know, uh,
Rambling and confused interpretation.
rather clumsy explanation. But what I can tell you is that you and I have been doing this for 25 years, if not more.
Yes.
And what we do know is that the telemedia industry is full of people that can take new technologies,
Mm.
innovate them, and turn them into actual money.
Yeah.
And so I would urge everybody that wants to get a practical understanding of what Paul just tried, but Paul adequately explained. Is to come to the is to come
I
to
tried.
is to come to 8.1 live for the day and meet some of the guys that really
Mm.
understand how to turn this stuff into real live cash. And we've seen it over the years, everything from video streaming to AI to virtual reality to lots of futuristic technologies that are now hardwired into the telemedia industry and being monetized on a daily basis. Um, as I said earlier, the Telemedia 8.1 model works on the basis that there will be a couple of hundred companies in a wonderful venue in downtown Barcelona. You will be able to have 40, if you are a hard worker, 40 or 50 meetings that you can pre-arrange through the Telemedia 8.1 platform. You will actually come away from a trip to Barcelona with genuine return
Mm.
on your very significant investment. And I think probably to close this episode of 8.1. Firstly, we'd like to say thank you for listening. Secondly, we'd like to say we would love to meet up with you in Barcelona. We
Mm.
will be there. Thirdly, we'd say probably the best place to meet would be on the 3rd of March in downtown Marbella for the day. Give yourself a
Barcelona,
break.
Barcelona, not Marbella, Barcelona.
Barcelona, give yourself a break from the Fiera and the miles that you'll be walking. And I just think we should say a big shout out and a big thank you to the key sponsors of this event. The wonderful Avina, who we already mentioned earlier, Creative Clicks, 3A Net, a wonderful network from the Middle East who are driving traffic into that exciting area. MT2, much the same. The MENA specialists. Sam Media, we've talked about them, the content and the aggregating side of things, innovators extraordinaire, dynamic mobile billing. I mean, what's not to say? What can we say? I mean, they are the bedrock. They started it, right? We've got Apex, and if you want to reach customers, if you want to understand how to market to customers, if you want to trade traffic, you want to talk to publishers and merchants, those are the guys you need to speak to. MobiMind, again, amazing content aggregator, bringing in payments and content in the MENA region and beyond, extraordinary. And again, a bedrock of our industry. Wonderful Melody Media. If you want short form video, long form video, if you want films from around the world, if you want games, if you want premium content, go talk to Melody. All those guys, big supporters of the event. Not to mention Impello, MCP, Telecoming, Mobile Business Engine, and GG Networks. I mean, come on, what do you need? I mean, that's a Premier League lineup. If that was a football team, they would be winning the Premier League. So listen, we will see you. We will see you in Barcelona
We will.
in a few days' time, and hopefully you'll be able to join us for the directors' lunch or the welcome party on the Sunday the 2nd. If not, get yourself down to Coach College of Architecture or whatever. It's all on the 8.1 website. There is a premium and a free entry, so it doesn't even have to cost you any money apart from the metro. And come on down and make some money in Barcelona. Paul, thanks very much, mate. I will see you in
I'll see you in
España.
Spain. Indeed, you will. Yes, good to see you, and it'd be nice to see you in person, not in this extended reality in which we
I
usually
will.
meet.
I do. This backdrop is attached to me, though. I will bring it with me.
Yeah,
All right,
I
everyone.
hope
So we'll
so.
see you in a couple
Yes.
of weeks' time.
See
Thank you very
you,
much for
yeah,
listening.
take care. Bye.